Responsible AI in Action with host Charles Dimov, CMO, kama.ai.
Welcome, everyone, to the Responsible AI in Action podcast and videocast. I am your host. I am Charles Dimov, the CMO of kama.ai, the leading responsible AI technology developer out in the world. And with me today is Brian Ritchie, who is the CEO and founder of kama.ai. Brian, could you tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in?
Sure. Yeah. As you said, I'm the founder and CEO of Kama. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, but have been working in technology basically since the beginning of my career, doing programming and simulations in process engineering, and then eventually got into higher tech with companies like Oracle, and then into telecom for a number of years. And then we started Kama in 2018. I'm also an Indigenous person. I'm a member of Chapleau Cree First Nation. And interestingly enough, our company is also an indigenously owned technology company.
That's actually pretty unique in the market, I think. So that's good. Thank you, Brian. Now, before we actually dive in, let me just explain a little bit of the background. So, to give the audience a bit of that background, this is a responsible AI in action podcast or videocast series. We are speaking with leaders around the AI industry about the latest developments, the challenges, the solutions that are out there on AI systems. We are trying to do this in a short 15 to 20-minute interview style to keep it fairly tight. Now, the question came up about why are we doing this? Does the world really need another voice talking about AI technology? There's lots in the media, there's lots in the press, et cetera, about AI technology. And our answer actually was yes, it does. Why? Specifically because our observations have been that the world is enamored with generative AI technology for good reason. It is absolutely fantastic. We use it ourselves. It's great technology. But there's a lot of podcasts out there already. There's a lot on the media about this already, this technology. And there are times where it sounds like it's a little bit of an echo chamber. And we're hearing from the same type of companies and such. So we thought, hey, this would be a good opportunity right now to hear from some other technology companies, some other AI technologies. There's machine learning, there's knowledge graph AI technology, there's hybrid AI, composite, lots of different types of technologies out there. And so this podcast and videocast series is exactly intended to talk to some of that and perhaps give a voice to a couple of others that we haven't heard in the market today just yet. So AI is touching all of our lives. And with that, why don't we jump in and get started? So, Brian, again, thank you so much for joining me today. And to start us off, what specifically is it about kama.ai that's unique or different, aside from being indigenous, which also unto itself is pretty unique? But what's different about kama.ai and what's your vision going forward?
Yeah, great question. First of all, thank you for having me on. Yeah, so I guess the difference is that we are not like the large language models that we're hearing so much of. We started off, of course, large language models were in development for a long time. They kind of launched onto the market with OpenAI and ChatGPT in 2022. We are a knowledge graph AI that started in kind of IP, intellectual property, and patents in 2012, and started in active development in 2018. And it is very different than what you are seeing and hearing about in the probabilistic world. So our knowledge graph AI happens to have similar capabilities in understanding the words that you said, your inquiry, your intent. But from there, we separate from the large language model, let's say, approach, and we use a more predictable and reliable approach, which is, in our opinion, more responsible. We understand exactly what you said, and we understand exactly what you're looking for, and we will deliver exactly the information that the enterprise wants you to know about their products or their services, or tell their employees about what might be coming up in some events inside the company, or company policies for that matter.
That's interesting. Now, actually, you touched on something that also piques my interest, which is you mentioned responsible AI, and I started seeing that a little bit more out in the field. I've seen ethical AI is coming up a little bit more. So, tell me more about responsible AI. How do we define it, and why is this important?
Yeah, and I think you touched on it also as well. We're seeing a lot of cases where, the chatbot said the wrong thing. There is something in the let's say, industry right now that's quite common with the prevalent technology, large language models. We call them
Mhm.
hallucinations.
Mhm.
Hallucination is where words look like probably, and that is a probabilistic technology. Probably these should be the right words to go together. Probably this word should follow that word based on the underlying information, but it might get mixed up. It might have combined two different documents, two different concepts. It delivers something that looks very good, but it might not be accurate. That's what a hallucination is. So that's one of the major problems within the industry. Of course, we hear things like
Mhm.
biased data and biased responses that might not be appropriate for a
Mhm.
particular community or culture. All of these things are part of what we would call issues, and to be able to take care of those issues in some way that's representative of a community, representative of an organization that we are providing service for. We want to make sure
Mhm.
that this AI is responsible for those stakeholders, right? So
Yeah.
we have a model for responsible AI. It has about 6 components to it. Transparency is one. Where are these words coming from? Where are the documents that these words are coming from? So links to the documents, those types of things. But also explainability. Exactly how does your AI work? There's data and privacy. So data bias and privacy of information. All of these things go together. And there's 3 other things as well that aren't coming to mind right now, but taking care of all of these things responsibly for an organization is what we would call responsible AI.
Yeah. And you know what I mean? As you say that, I certainly as a marketer, I totally get it. I mean, it's pretty important. You want something which is going to be, or an AI technology. If I'm putting it behind our chatbot, talking to customers, for example, to prospects and things, you want brand safety, for example. I don't want it to go off and say something radical or crazy or just flat out wrong, probably. Now, I see that from a branding perspective. Why do you think there's a need for this? Like, are there some other use cases that you might be able to think of in the market that would say, hey, yeah, here's another really, really good example why you would want responsible AI?
Sure. So as you mentioned, the let's say outward facing, consumer facing, client facing
Mhm.
applications, you want, an AI that properly represents the values of your company, the values of your products and services. That's pretty, let's say, typical, and we can understand that, as you say, from a brand safety standpoint and a reputation standpoint, organizational reputation standpoint. However, there's many things that have to be right? If we have a policy
Mhm.
on
Mhm.
onboarding new employees, we don't want to be guessing about that policy and saying
Yeah.
probably this is the best way to onboard an employee. We want exactly the onboarding policy that we should be, undertaking to bring on a new employee. So, things like governance. Of course, we hear a lot about AI governance, but I'm talking about organizational governance to make sure the organization is operating the way we plan to operate, right? The policies we've made,
Right.
people have quick access to the information, and they don't have to second guess whether the information is right, and they don't have to check the underlying document links to make sure the information is well grounded. It's right out of the knowledge base.
Yeah. Which is good. So in other words, it's sanctioned and it should be right. I mean, it should be correct in effect, which is good. So is there, in your mind, is there any reason why you think that this is particularly important right now?
Yeah, I think that primarily there are, AI is, as you said, it's gotten a lot of attention in a very short time frame. We can hear, I think we're onto the fourth industrial revolution, right? This is the fourth
Mm-hmm.
industrial revolution now, and there's a lot of, we could call it hype in the marketplace. That these tools are going to, be extremely beneficial to my organization. We're going to be much more
Mm-hmm.
efficient, and that's fine. That is the hope of AI. But then there's also the risk of AI. And in terms of the risk of AI, there's a big issue around generative AI governance. We've worked with the Vector Institute in Toronto with a committee of about 15 different corporations across Canada to put together a framework for let's say, the governance of generative AI. It so happens
Mm-hmm.
that kama.ai, being a knowledge graph AI, is somewhat immune to many of the concerns regarding generative AI. We do not have such things as hallucinations, therefore we don't have to worry about that.
Hmm.
The data that's been put into the knowledge base, as you say, has been sanctioned by the chief marketing officer, sanctioned by the company's lawyer, sanctioned by the CEO. Well, if that's the case, then we don't have to worry about hallucinations. We don't have to worry about biased data as long as our people put unbiased data, unbiased responses into the knowledge graph, right? Having said that, we, as you said, we embrace generative AI as well. There can be use cases where our customers would like to also receive generative responses, but then let's be responsible in that too. Let's give those users, first of all, the notification that we can generate a response for you, but beware, these generations can contain some of these issues, and then we'll go and generate the response based on their inquiry. We'll inform them one last time as we give the advice or give the information. We'll tell them again that please make sure you check the links because the information still may contain, a hallucination or other issues like that.
Yeah, so a little bit of best of both worlds type of thing. And let me get back to that in a second. But actually, one of the things came up, or rather came to my mind, which is that kama.ai did a press release just fairly recently, as of this recording. And that press release was talking a little bit about the integration with Cohere, which actually is another Canadian AI technology. Brian, could you tell me a little bit about that? And then I do want to get back to this idea about melding the two.
Very good. Yeah. So I guess, it's very important to listen to your customers and what might your customers want. So
Yeah.
we have the
Yeah.
knowledge graph AI. It's very responsible. It's very authentic to the enterprise. But we have customers who said, but for internal applications, for our employees, we have a lot of good documentation. We've invested a lot of money in that documentation, and maybe it's good enough to get the 85% answer, the 95% answer, and we can also tell our employees that they should, make sure they check the underlying documents. So for certain use cases, it can be, we could say that it could be appropriate to use generative AI. But so we wanted to find a way of how could we meld these two different capabilities, a more responsible, let's say, form of AI that is always accurate, but might not know the answer to everything. And then another form of AI, which is generative, based on documentation that the company has produced. There's something in the industry called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So using that technique, which is part of the kind of large language model sphere of AI, we can take all the enterprise's documents and we can put it together in a responsible and trusted way. We call them kama trusted collections. And we can now answer questions from the audience, maybe employees, internal, and we can answer questions based on the enterprise's document. So we came up with the concept of a two half-brained AI agent. One half of the brain is a deterministic knowledge base AI. The other half of the brain is a more creative, large language model, generative AI, and these things can work together. Ask a question. If we have it in the knowledge graph, you're going to get the absolute answer. You don't have to wonder whether it's right. You don't have to check any underlying document links. But if we don't have that answer, or if you're not happy with that answer, you can press thumbs down and you can get an answer from the generative side based on the trusted collections that we've assisted the organization to put together. So that's the concept of the hybrid virtual agents. We're taking two forms of AI in the case with Cohere, two Canadian AI companies, and providing the best of the both worlds, as you said earlier.
And now, is that so this hybrid AI agent, is that what you've been calling the sober second mind? Because that's one of the things you've referred to in the past.
Yeah, exactly. So that concept comes from the idea of hallucinations, right? So if something is hallucinating, maybe it's not totally sober then. Well, let's have a sober second mind part of that AI that can answer the questions, 100% truthfully. What we see with our customers, that sometimes we can deploy multiple agents across our platform, as can others in the industry. So maybe the internal facing agent is actually got both minds powering it. The external one, because we might be concerned about brand risk and reputation, the external one is only driven by the knowledge graph AI. So different
The
applications, different combinations of, as you said, composite AI. Even in the case
right.
of the let's say the knowledge graph AI or virtual agent, we can still use generative assist to generate the answer that might be an answer reviewed by a human knowledge worker inside the enterprise that will be going into the knowledge base, and for approval by other stakeholders within the enterprise. This is a marketing type answer, so I better check with the marketing director or the CMO. This answer has legal implications, I better check with the lawyer. So use a generative approach, but then shepherd the information around, make sure it's got all the approvals inserted into the knowledge graph, and now that answer is fully, let's say, fully approved for release in terms of, a very sensitive audience, perhaps.
Right, right. Okay, well, that's good. And that would be that deterministic side that you mentioned before. Okay, cool. Good. Well, with that, actually, I am pretty sure that we will probably have another session that dives deeper into the concept of sober second mind. I absolutely love that title itself. That does characterize. I think there was some Oxford research that basically said that 58% of the time in the answers that we get from a generative AI, it has some element of error in there. So sober second mind definitely kind of does speak to that well. Nice little catchphrase. With that, Brian, I do want to thank you for joining us on this discussion and a little bit of a journey into kama.ai and what we do. Brian, again, just as a reminder, is the CEO of kama.ai and the leader in responsible AI technologies. So please do stay tuned for the next session that we are going to have. We are going to be speaking with Mark Kosen, who is the head of partnerships at kama.ai. And he's going to be speaking with me about human in the loop and the importance to organizations using AI technologies. So with that, see you next time on Responsible AI in Action.